You only need one affirmation to break through the clouds, to break through the storm, to get onto the other side of your old story and into the new story. When all that old stuff starts to purge and you can get kind of lost in the fog, lost in the cloudiness, the haze, the darkness, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. And apparently, according to Florence Scovel Schinn, you only need this one affirmation to get you through into your new story, your new reality, onto the other side of the transformation. Hey guys, my name is Alex. I talk about manifestation and all sorts of fun things on this channel, and I want to jump right into it. So I am going to be reading an excerpt from, this is her trilogy. I know it's backwards, but it's her trilogy. We have The Game of Life and How to Play It. Sorry, my dog is chewing a bone in the background. And there is no moving him. So we have a Abrachi in the background chewing an antler, ASMR. Okay. So I want to read an excerpt from her chapter on casting the burden, or impressing the subconscious, which if you've been watching YouTube videos about manifestation, you understand that the whole concept of the process is to try and use your conscious mind and your conscious thoughts and actions to impress your subconscious mind in order to create a new reality, create new circumstances for yourself. Now, if you're new to Florence Scovel Schinn, I've just recently started talking about her. I've been listening to other people talk about her for a while now, but I finally felt that it was on my path to dive in and start reading her teachings and understand them. I personally understand why it took some time for me. A lot of her stuff is very faith-based, and I talked in my other video about when you use your conscious mind to manifest such a hyper-specific thing. For example, I need this particular car, not just any car that gives me the experience I want, or I need this particular person, not just anyone who's going to give me that partnership that I want, that sort of thing. She says that's coming from karmic law, and so you'll be subjected to the karmic law, and you can have negative events occur as a result, and that the best, easiest, and safest way to manifest is through aligning to whatever is in your divine plan, which she, it's my understanding, believes that your subconscious understands what that is, and your conscious mind probably doesn't, and so you surrender in that faith to your subconscious or your soul or divine intelligence and let it bring through whatever is supposed to come through for you. So that being said, she does talk about the Christ within, or that connection to God or infinite intelligence, the universe. I don't believe that it's Christian labeling in the traditional sense, but rather in the frequency sense. I won't spend too long talking about that. Let's get right into it. Okay, so she says, I knew a woman whose burden was resentment. She said, and then she repeats the affirmation that Florence gave to her. I cast this burden of resentment on the Christ within, and I go free to be loving, harmonious, and happy. The almighty superconscious flooded the subconscious with love, and her whole life was changed. For years, resentment had held her in a state of torment and imprisoned her soul. The soul being the subconscious mind. This statement should be made over and over and over, sometimes for hours at a time, silently or audibly, with quietness but determination. So this isn't a one and done. She's saying that if you feel any sort of burden, some feelings, right? So this woman felt resentment, and that was causing her issues. So if you feel jealousy, or if you feel scarcity, or you feel abandoned or not prioritized, this is something that you need to repeat to yourself, to remind yourself that you can cast this burden. And you're basically, it's every time the feelings come up, you're kind of taking it out of the conscious mind, because your conscious mind is going to try and do something about it, and you're no, we're going to give that to something other than my conscious mind to deal with, because she says that this is the best way to clear those things, and like overcome them. So what she says is, so this statement should be made over and over. She said, I have often compared it to winding up a Victrola. Is that one of those like instruments that they used to wind up? I think. She said, we must wind ourselves up with spoken words. I have noticed in casting the burden, after a little while, one seems to see clearly. It is impossible to have clear vision while in the throes of carnal mind. Interesting. So carnal mind, to me, my understanding is that this is our conscious mind, our conscious desires, our conscious solutions to whatever unwanted circumstances we are having. Doubts and fear poison the mind and body, and imagination runs riot, attracting disaster and disease. Don't we know it? If you're watching this video, you're not a perfect person, just like me. I'm currently, when are we not working through fears, and how our fear of trying and then feeling the need to protect ourselves from a space of fear is how we end up manifesting the very things that we are afraid of. So I love this advice because she's giving you a way to affirm, to like cast away your doubts and fears so that they don't sit and poison your mind. And then manifest, right? So like, that's a big deal. So she says, in steadily repeating the affirmation, I cast this burden on the Christ within and go free. So that's the affirmation that she provides. I cast this burden on the Christ within and go free. Now you can make it a little bit more specific, like with the woman who said, I cast this burden of resentment on the Christ within and I go free, and then she added to be loving, harmonious, and happy. So you can tweak it, to like be like, this is specifically the thing that I want to cast away, and then this is specifically what I would like to have instead. But it needs to like correlate, where what would come in would be because you have now gotten rid of the negative thing or transmuted it, right? Okay. So she says, in steadily repeating the affirmation, I cast this burden on the Christ within and go free, the vision clears, and with it a feeling of relief, and sooner or later comes the manifestation of good, be it health, happiness, or supply. Now this is the part that I really wanted to get to. She says, one of my students once asked me to explain the darkness before the dawn. I referred in a preceding chapter to the fact that often before the big demonstration, everything seems to go wrong, and deep depression clouds the consciousness. It means that out of the subconscious are rising the doubts and fears of the ages. These old derelicts of the subconscious rise to the surface to be put out. It is then that man should clap his cymbals like Jehoshaphat and give thanks that he is saved, even though he seems surrounded by the enemy, the situation of lack or disease. There's more, but I'm going to pause and just go over this because I just love this little section so much. I think specifically because of the energy as of lately, however you want to approach just the energy that we seem to go through as a collective from an astrological point of view, whatever. There's been like not a million, but 3 or 4 astrological events. We had Mercury in retrograde finally wrapping up its shadow period on June 1st. Now for me, I feel the shadow period the hardest. It feels like when water's like circling the drain, it just feels like all of a sudden the rug gets ripped out from under me in the last tail end of the shadow period, because all the lessons that I have learned, it's like, okay, you learned them and now we're going to change your reality. So all this stuff starts getting pulled out and it feels very disorienting to me. And then at the very end of the shadow period for a few days afterwards, I feel a void space where there's like, okay, I feel like I'm kind of losing all these things, or these things have been removed, and I can feel that I'm in energetic alignment with the better thing, but like it's not here yet, and I don't feel any forward movement, and I feel just in this stagnant place of suspension, which I know that suspension and stagnation are not the same thing, and it is most likely suspension, but it can be perceived as stagnation out of fear. So I've been really feeling this, and I think we have the full moon tonight, last night. We have the full moon. Oh, this is coming out on Monday. So we had the full moon over the past weekend. And I'm hoping, well, I guess not hoping because it's going to move forward sooner or later. But it's like in Sagittarius. And so I had this like email astrology horoscope that I never read, but I happened to read this one talking about how it's like the pulling back of the arrow for Sagittarius in this full moon. And it does kind of feel like that. It's like, hey, I'm trying to be over here, like what I'm aiming my arrow at. And you feel like you're going backwards and you're like, what the hell? I want to be over there, you know? And it can be like upsetting. And so I really like how she says, before the big demonstration or before the like things start to show up, everything seems to go wrong and deep depression clouds the consciousness. Thank God someone put this into words, right? Like, it can be very depressing because you are getting dragged back through all of that old crap, honestly, and it clouds the consciousness. I literally just think of it like cloudy water, you know, like it gets all stirred up. And so it means that out of the subconscious are rising the doubts and fears of the ages or from the past. So your doubts and fears are rising up because they're not going to be able to come with you onto this next step. And depending on the level of cloudiness, this can be a very hard thing to remember how to approach these feelings because they can kind of just like, we tend to interact with our feelings almost so immediately instead of sitting and observing them and just letting them move. And the more and more I've practiced just observing my feelings and keeping, you know, like not acting on them and just like taking some time to really let them flow and move, the easier this has become for me. So these old derelicts of the subconscious rise to the surface to be put out. So it quite simply, and I'm going to read the rest of what she has to say here, but for me, in my personal experience, quite simply, all you have to do, because I don't know, I perhaps overthink things a little bit. I tend to really like to intellectualize my feelings, and that's something that I'm working on, shifting into a healthier practice and response. And I see the progress for sure. So this has been getting easier. But when these things rise up, I remind myself that like I'm not losing or, you know, failing in any sort of way. This is just this like purge of the things that need to be healed so that I can really fully shift into this new space, and that I already know how to heal them. Because what throws me for a loop is these things, it's like, oh my God, I thought I already dealt with that. I thought I healed this. And I've talked about this in a handful of other videos that, you know, healing, it's like a spiral. So you come back around to things all the time. And you already have the tools, and there's just pieces of you that didn't get to be healed the first time. I won't, you know, I've gone into that more in depth in my other videos. And the short version is that basically who you were at the time, those pieces of you did not feel safe. And so you heal the parts of you that are like, man, we'll give it a shot. And then you become a more healed version of you that makes yourself feel more and more secure over time. And so then those other pieces aren't as intimidated or timid about coming forth to be healed. That's my perspective. So when they come up, sometimes like in the past, I have kind of had very strong reactions of, oh my God, well, what the heck am I supposed to do? Like, I thought I took care of this. Just do the same thing. Just walk with yourself in the same way that you used to. It's the same thing coming up. You already know how to do the healing process. And I find that it happens so much faster. Like the thing that took you like a week to handle or even months, it's going to take a couple hours, if that. Okay, so she says that these things rise up, and she says, it is then that man should clap his cymbals and give thanks that he is saved, even though he seems surrounded by lack. which means that you should recognize the situation for what it is in a positive light instead of being like, not this shit again. Which you can definitely do that, but you don't want to linger in that space. You want to feel your feelings. And I did a whole video called like the power of being negative or something. When you deny yourself the chance to feel sadness and depression and heartache over things that maybe aren't necessarily true, like when you go to move into a new space in life, it can feel like the ending of the old. It means that nothing new will come of it. It's okay. Mourn it and move through it. Just keep moving. It's fine. But if you don't fully let yourself feel that, you won't be able to move through. You have to move through it, basically, or else it's just going to change the process. And for me, that has only ever delayed things horribly. Okay, so the student continues to ask her, how long must one remain in the dark? And she replies, until one can see in the dark. And casting the burden enables one to see in the dark. In order to impress the subconscious, active faith is always essential. Faith without works is dead. Okay, so, in fact, active faith is the bridge over which man passes to his promised land. So I think that this is like talking about when you're in that space and you're like, I don't know how this is going to line up that I'm going to receive my blessing or my manifestation, right? This is where the active faith comes into play, where you surrender and you don't try and consciously guess, is it going to be, this thing that gets me there, or is it going to be, if I text them this way, then it'll get the response that I want, or if I send another follow-up email, or if my dog is digging through something that I set on the floor in the kitchen. I know I do this. Like and I've talked about it, where, you look for the bridge of incidents and you don't want to walk until you're sure that this next step is going to get you the thing you want. And I'm telling you that you need to take Florence's advice, if you would, please, because when you surrender and you just know that it's all going to work out for you, and you stop trying to figure out how it's going to happen and you just live your life, it comes to you in the unexpected way. And trust me, as I'm saying that, my brain's like, and I love to figure out what the unexpected way is going to be. And I don't know if you understand how backwards that is, but I still try and do it. And the more and more I've surrendered, the more effortless and easy this process has become, and the more trust and faith I have built in myself. Now, this is not going to happen overnight. This is, like a spiral process of you building faith and trust in yourself as you heal, and clearing out and supporting yourself so that you do not have like a fear-based reality anymore. Let me see if there's anything else I want to add to this. So when she says that casting the burden enables one to be able to see in the dark, and that seeing in the dark is what you need, I believe this is when she means like faith, because like I just said, you're not going to know what the next step is. But I think it's just seeing in the dark, to me, from what I have experienced, is being able to recognize this is probably an old pattern. It doesn't matter how strongly you still feel that it's real. There will be some part of you, however strong it is, whatever fraction or percentage it is, there will be a part of you that feels peace, ease, calm, and knows that this is a challenge for you to overcome. This is something to work through and to witness. And that is seeing in the dark to me. That's my way that I understand it as it is in my own personal process. And I have been going through that just over the past week. So I'm sure that you guys are also going through similar things, and I really like her affirmation for casting the burden. It's honestly something that I need to get back into practice of. I have been doing sleep affirmation tapes instead of doing affirmations in the mirror, and it served me for a while, but I was presented with new fears that were coming up. I'm at the end of whatever this thing is, and so I'm going to take Florence's advice and go back to doing, a few minutes a couple times a day of mirror work with the affirmation about casting the burden. And if you want to find out more of her affirmations, I would just look it up on the internet. I'm sure there's lists in different places. Her book, Your Word is Your Wand, is literally just a list of affirmations, and I'm sure you can find them listed somewhere for free. But I do highly recommend purchasing or acquiring her writings because they're so helpful. But yeah, I am going to wrap this one up here. And as always, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Drop a comment. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know your thoughts. What do you want to hear more of? Yeah, and if you would like to support this channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon, and the information will be down below. It's just $3 a month, and you get bonus content, and I go more in depth about my personal success stories, but more just my personal experiences and what I've witnessed and experienced. Experience is the word of the day. And then if you'd like to work one-on-one with me, my website is also linked down below. You can schedule a session with me. All of my information is down there. If you have any questions, you can also find my email and my contact page on my website. I think that's it. I will see you guys in the next video.